Well, good day to you. It is January the 9th. I hope you're having a wonderful day wherever you are. My name is Gary Willing, and as always, I want to welcome you to Search for Signs. If you are new, and if you've been here before, I want to welcome you back. But if you are new, especially if you're new, and you want to know more about Maitreya and the Masters of Wisdom, look into it. Read more about them. And I've included links in the description portion of every one of these videos to make it easier for anybody who's interested in knowing more about Maitreya and the Masters of Wisdom, about his priorities, about the many miracle signs, those kind of things, because those websites give really good background information about this in some ways. So that's why I put them in there. Now, if you want to know more about this information by joining the discussion, you can post a comment. A lot of times I'll reference the comment or address the comment. I always try to answer the questions in the next video. So if you post a question, listen to the next video, and typically I'll answer it in that video. If not, I'll have to answer it in the following video if I run out of time. But anyway, or you can email me directly at searchforsigns@mail.com. But actually, I'd had a new way of getting a hold of me. Timothy Tilton actually reached out and asked me a question via Facebook. So you're the very first, Timothy, and I'm going to try to answer your question here in just a moment. But I do put up posts on Facebook from time to time. I don't put a lot of time and energy into putting up posts on Facebook, but I'm going to start doing more of it. But because, Timothy, you actually address me through there, so why not? I'll try to maybe start putting up more posts and those kind of things on there. Now, Zach Laney, I guess, wanted another thank you, like he hasn't gotten enough over the past few weeks. But I always say, post a comment, you get a thank you. So there you go, Zach, there's your thank you. Win Thang, I am going to address your questions in just a second. And Yethro 2023, thank you so much for your comment. And like I said, if you want to join the discussion, feel free to do that too. Now, I'm going to start with the Facebook comment. And I do have to kind of set this up because I posted a link to one of my videos on Facebook. And this is what Timothy was asking about. And this was an experience that I had with Maitreya several decades ago, actually. So let me just give you a little understanding of why I entitled it in the way that I did. But anyway, what happened was I typically would fly by myself out to California and see Benjamin Creme at this conference. But this year I actually flew with the Atlanta group. They usually went out a day or two earlier than I did. I couldn't afford to do that at the time, so I typically would have to wait until the very last minute to fly out there, that kind of thing. So this year I flew out there with them, and we were all on the same flight. We got a rental car together, and we're driving from the airport, which is south of town, and we were going to Marin Headlands, which is on the other side of the Golden Gate Bridge. And so we're driving up 101, and there was just a lot of traffic this day. I mean, it was really just stop and go. And I remember looking over and seeing this man who ended up being Maitreya in a white Jeep Cherokee with gold lettering and gold hubcaps and those kind of things. Now, that typically would not register to me that it could be Maitreya. What was crazy was he was playing this very, very tiny little trumpet, and it was about the size of his hand. I mean, it was really small. I've never seen a trumpet this small, so I don't think these trumpets really exist. Anyway, and he's playing, he looks like he's practicing, playing the trumpet as he's driving, which would be kind of dangerous to do, I guess. It's probably more dangerous than maybe perhaps talking on the phone as you're driving. But anyway, he had this little tiny little stand with some music, and he's kind of looking at the music, playing the trumpet, and I can't hear anything. I just see him doing it in the car. And he looks over, he's in the lane next to us, and he looks over at the car when I kind of think, like, that's kind of weird. And I said, Ann, who was a member of the transmission group that I was flying out with, and she was sitting in the front seat. I was right behind her in the back seat. And I said, look at this guy. This guy's playing this tiny little trumpet over here. And it gets the attention of everybody in the car, and we all kind of look over at him. And she rolls down her window and kind of sticks her head out and kind of cups her ear like, hey, can we hear something? And he rolls down his window, smiles and waves, and then starts playing I Left My Heart in San Francisco as we were stopped in traffic on 101. Now, irregardless of whether it was Maitreya or not, which I know it was an incredible experience just to be stuck in traffic hearing music like this. I mean, it was really just a wonderful moment, that I've had that I found very memorable in my life. But like I said, because it was Maitreya, it means more to me than that. But it was such a beautiful experience. And if you know anything about the people of San Francisco, they're quite unique. So the whole time I'm thinking it's just an ordinary guy, although I started noticing that it really put me in just a wonderful mood for that weekend. I mean, I was like walking on air the whole time. I kept thinking about that. Man, that was just, what city would you ever have somebody play music in dead stop traffic like this? But San Francisco, it's the only place I would think of that it would ever happen. It wouldn't happen in New York, you know what I'm saying? Wouldn't happen in Philly. It wouldn't happen in Atlanta even, but San Francisco is just kind of one of those places where people kind of do stuff like that. And I was sitting with Benjamin Creme one lunch. I always wanted to sit with him at least once for the weekend. And I just told him about this. I wasn't even telling him, I think, because I thought it might be Maitreya and try to get him to answer, whether that was him or not. I was just telling him this story, and he just looks at me and smiles and goes, just write it into the Sharon National. I said, really? And he goes, don't even ask me. He goes, because he didn't want people asking him twice the same question, so because it would waste his master's time. He goes, don't even ask me, just write it in. So anyway, I wrote it in, and it was like, it ended up being Maitreya. But anyway, and I think about that all the time. So anyway, so Timothy was asking me a question directly related to the title of this video. And the title of the video I put up and posted on Facebook the other day was Gabriel blows his trumpet, details at 11. Now, if you're not a Christian and you don't know a lot about Revelation, according to Revelation, the archangel Gabriel, along with some other, I guess, angels, will blow their trumpets, and then that will let everybody know that the Christ is coming back from the clouds, right? So I figured it was a kind of a catchy little title, not to mention it was like details at 11. So that was my joke of it. But anyway, so it was more of a jokey kind of title. Now, he asked me kind of a serious question. He said, on your YouTube account, you said archangels weren't real. Which is it? Now, I never said archangels weren't real. Let's get that straight. Now, if you go back and listen to any video I talk about where I talk about the angels or the divas or even archangels, what I say is that their relationship with humanity is not what people think. So people who are perhaps thinking that they're channeling archangels are not actually channeling anybody. They're receiving messages from disincarnated entities on the astral plane, which means nothing, because the astral plane is riddled with illusion. Or it could be their own subconscious, which I guess would also not be real either. But archangels don't communicate through people that way. The angels, the divas, the builders of nature and those kind of things don't communicate and have any kind of real one-on-one relationships with humanity, because they're a parallel evolution to humanity at this moment in time. Anytime somebody's saved in an accident by an angel, or healed and says that I think an angel might have saved me or something like this, according to the masters, it's always one of them. It could be any one of these masters doing it. These masters do from time to time, according to Ben's own master, appear to somebody as an angel, a winged creature, through the law of recognition, so that the person would think that it's an angel and maybe think that it's a being coming from a divine source or something like this. But they're only doing it because that person is expecting the masters to look like an angel, I guess. So that's why they do it. The times that I saw Maitreya, the times that I was saved in an accident by one of these masters, I never thought it was an actual angel that saved me. So that's why if you listen, Timothy, if you didn't listen to the video, go back and listen to the video, because it really doesn't have anything to do with Gabriel blowing his trumpet. It was just that I had a Maitreya experience who I believe is the Christ, blew a trumpet. So anyway, which, in its own way, I guess, is fulfilling the prophecy of Revelation, I guess, to some degree. But that's where it's coming from. So he was, I don't subscribe to people who say that they channel archangels, but I do know that archangels are real. They just don't have the same relationship that with humanity that people think that they do. So does that clarify that? But thank you very much for being the very, very first person to comment and ask a question on my Facebook page. I really do appreciate it. So it's not the most efficient way to get a hold of me, because I'm not on Facebook all the time. The best way to do it is just to post your question on the YouTube page, because I see that all the time. But thank you so much for that. Now, this is more of a priority of Maitreya. question coming from Win Thing. Let's see. There's a couple of them. I'll kind of read them together. The first one says, in the microcosm national level, it is the sharing. So the universal basic income can also be seen through the lens of the Marshall Plan. And then there's another comment that says, hello, Gary, can you touch upon the universal basic income come into play with the scheme of the big plan, the divine plan? Thanks. So the Marshall Plan, we'll cover this again, because this is the most important thing that we could be talking about on this channel, really, to be honest, because it has to do with the principle of sharing. Maitreya says, without sharing, there will be no justice. Without justice, there will be no peace. And without peace, there will be no future. That's how important it is. Our very future depends on whether we share the resources of the world or not. Now, this is not coming from, from perhaps individuals giving to other individuals, which I think eventually will be a part of it, because we hoard our own resources individually out of fear that we will not have enough in the future, right? Fear and greed really are cousins. They're one and the same. You can't have greed without fear. And I guess you can't, well, you can have fear without greed, but anyway, but they go hand in hand. So once people lose their fear, their greed will naturally start to subside, and they'll probably be like, yeah, I don't really need $100 million. Maybe I can get away with living off of 10, you know what I'm saying? Or whatever, right? Now, where the Marshall Plan fits into this, it has to do with nations. This is what will bring about peace, not individuals giving from one to another, okay? So even if people like Jeff Bezos and, Bill Gates and Elon Musk and all those people gave 90% of their income up to the poor, it would be wonderful. It would be wonderful to see, and it would be very inspiring to see, but it would not bring about peace in the way that is needed. Nations have to give their resources to other nations. That will bring about just and trust amongst the nations. That will help these nations, all the nations, start to work together more for solving the problems of the world, like the environment and those kind of things, and eventually bring about the trust and the justice and those kind of things, and the goodwill amongst these nations. Now, universal basic income is a part of it, I think, because I think there are people living on less than $1 a day, of course, right? And there's a lot to that discussion of a universal basic income, because I do think that nations could, if they prioritize their spending correctly, could have a universal basic income to give to the people. And I watched this gentleman, and I'm just going to talk about this for a second because I don't know much about him, but I saw him on a video, and this guy's life was loosely based. I don't even know his name actually, but they introduced him, and he said his life was loosely based on this TV show called Scorpion or Scorpio or something like this, and it's on the UPN network, which I don't have. But anyway, this guy is a super genius. I mean, he's really, really smart. I can't remember exactly what his IQ level was, but it was way over 200. And he was talking about the pandemic, and he was also talking about artificial intelligence and those kind of things. We talk about it on this channel too, about how that's going to change life and those kind of things. And he was talking about it in the exact same way, that it will disrupt all of life, AI, and automation and those kind of things. And he just kind of pinpointed and focused in on one industry, which was driverless Uber cars. All the industries that will be disrupted just from people not even having to drive an Uber, and just you hop in an Uber without a driver, takes you down the street to the left, go to the store, you get back in one on the way back home, and those kind of things. And he went through all these industries that would be disrupted from that and put people out of work and those kind of things. And it seemed kind of dismal when he was describing all this stuff because he was going into such detail. And then he said, and this is what was kind of interesting, really perked my ears up, is he goes, governments could actually give a tax to the people and not the other way around. And he's talking about a universal basic income where he was, where perhaps governments like the United States, for instance, could give $30,000, $35,000, $40,000 a year to every single person that's living in the country. They could use that money to spend on food and whatever like they need. If you want to make more than that, that's great, but that's what you get. And so you could live off that money. And with right now, he said, was talking about inflation. He goes, it's going to eventually be deflationary because with automation, they can do things cheaper and faster and easier and those kind of things. Schlep it from one point of the world to another and that kind of thing for a lot less and all those kind of things because you're not having to pay for so many people and those kind of things that they could actually produce and market and sell food, products, those kind of things way cheaper than they could today. And so 40,000, he said, well, you could live very comfortably off of 40 grand. But if you wanted to be a millionaire, feel free, right? And it kind of goes along the lines of what Maitreya was talking about, because Maitreya says that socialism and capitalism are really two wheels on the same cart. You can't have one without the other. So people always accuse the Democrats of being socialist or communist, which there's no truth to that, because they're just as capitalist as the Republicans are, really, but maybe just a teeny tiny little sprinkling of socialism in there. But other than that, they're basically, two peas in a pod, right? Now, people have also said on this channel and commented when I talk about the principle of sharing that sounds a lot like communism. It's not, okay? But economically, even, Maitreya says that the structures of the future will be built on the structures of the past. And so the structures of the past are capitalism, communism, and socialism. So we'll still have some remnants of those economic systems, at least for a little while, okay? And so I think it's going to more look like, within a country, countries will be more socialist based than just pure capitalism like it is today in the United States. And the goal would be, I think it was like 80, 90, I can't remember what the exact percentage was, 90%, 95% socialism and 5% capitalism or something like that. I think it's 80-20. That's what it is, 80-20. 80% socialism, 20% capitalism, which is kind of what this guy's talking about. And so, but not 100% socialism and zero capitalism. But with the Marshall Plan and the principle of sharing, that is going to be more international, I think. And just as with individuals, I think governments will be the same thing. When they start to trust one another a little bit more, maybe not perfectly right away, they won't feel the need to be so greedy. Okay, fine. We can give some bread or wheat or cotton or whatever they're giving, whatever they have in excess of with another country. And then they could say, okay, well, this country has a lot of natural gas or has lithium that I need for my batteries or whatever like this. And okay, well, I'm going to give you what you need. Let's say steel for building, or wood for building, because you're a desert country. You don't have a lot of wood, right? Trees and stuff. So we'll give you wood, I need natural gas. And then that's kind of the way it works. But it's more of the ideal situation would be, according to Benzo Master, is a department within the United Nations headed by one of these masters would be the integral, like the core, the center for the principle of sharing. So these countries would just give it to them and they could store it. Okay, when another country needs it, they could give it to that country and those kind of things. That's kind of the way I think it would work. But universal basic income will be a necessity unless countries just want to have a bunch of revolts all the time, which we're seeing more and more of them as time goes on, right? Where if we don't take care of the people, right, and you're out of work, what do? Well, you can't just expect them just to sit there with a grin on their face and not have any money, not have any food, not have any way of taking care of themselves. The countries will have to take care of them. And according to this guy, I'll swing back to this dude's name this guy who was talking about universal basic income in this way, right? Which I don't know his name, unfortunately. He said that, and I've always saw it this way too, trickle down economics never works. Boil up economics always does. So if you give to the people, it eventually goes right back to the rich anyway. You know what I'm saying? And then the rich would pay taxes, on what they make. It goes to the government and bada bing, bada boom. But it would just be, instead of having somebody like Elon Musk with 200 and something billion dollars of his own, he might only have 50. Why not? You know what I'm saying? Still get along very well with 50 or $25 billion or whatever like that. But I think that's kind of more of how ideally it's supposed to look. But yeah, universal basic income is definitely a part of it. It will only come when the principle of sharing starts to manifest, because then, and only then, will humanity start to see itself as one. And once you see yourself as one, I mean, we have the food, we have the water, we have the resources right now to fully supply all the people on this planet ongoingly forever and sustain it. But you can't do it when just a tiny little minority of people are hoarding all the wealth. Tiny little, one country is hoarding more resources than another country. And that's where the principle of sharing comes in. It will start to bring about trust amongst these nations. And then these nations might go, we have this environmental problem going on. Maybe we can work together on that. And that's where I think it's going to really come into play. So I really do appreciate your comments and your questions, everybody. Thank you so much. I love you. You guys have a great day, and we'll look forward to putting up more videos in the future.
Remember
guys take care.
Take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.